good afternoon again for the people who joined a bit later. My name is Sebastian Ng. I'm the National Sales Manager at Fronius Australia, if we haven't met before. Looking forward to meet you guys at All Energy this year in Melbourne. So please feel free to come and say hi, where we have all our staff and all our products. If you have any questions, please feel free always to ask also. So today we are here to talk a bit about the Fronius Wattpilot. So it's a new Fronius car charger, which is coming to the market. We had so much success in Europe because we released, let's say, 1 or 2 versions over there, and the feedback has been pretty good. So we can't wait to have those car chargers here in Australia. So throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please pop them in. I will answer it at the end of the presentation. I think it will be a bit easier on my side, but yeah, any questions, please feel free to ask. So the Fronius Wattpilot, that's quite an important, I would say, point on our side, because people always ask, okay, Fronius does inverters, what's happening with car chargers? We know in Australia it's becoming a big topic, and this Fronius Wattpilot will say on our side, it's bringing us closer to this clean energy of the future. Of course, all of us are here, I would say, work in the solar industry, and of course, having, let's say, e-mobility, having car chargers, having batteries, this brings us, let's say, closer to this clean energy of the future. And for us, how do we describe the clean energy of the future? We describe it as the 24 hours of sun, and 24 hours of sun means 100% renewable. We know that, for example, at Fronius, we can't achieve everything by ourselves. That's where we need to be able to integrate, let's say, different technologies and different solutions. As you can see, one example, people are moving from, let's say, the petrol cars to electric cars. How do we bring that into the picture in terms of energy consumption for the customer? And if you look at this, we always need to have a look at, let's say, the current and future needs of the customer. As I mentioned at the start, of course, everyone knows that PV makes sense, inverter makes sense, and people were looking at an early stage, let's say, in terms of the cheapest way of storing energy, which was through hot water system. Then people are looking at batteries, and here in Australia, looking at EVs is basically booming. I was talking to a few friends, to a few relatives, even to a few colleagues, but the weight on electric vehicle has, let's say, exploded in a way. And if you look at the solution, one thing that we are seeing a bit more often, people are looking at, okay, I'm having an EV. Of course, I will need to charge the EV, but if the electricity price is high, then maybe sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? So that's why we need to look at, when you're having an EV, how can you use your solar system to make the most of it? So if you look at a solar system nowadays, it's not as simple as just having an inverter. This inverter needs to be smart enough to talk to different products. So before I go in and talk about the car charger itself, I would say I will just highlight a few points which I think a lot of you guys have heard, that we have the Gen 24 in the market. So the one that you guys have heard a lot was the Gen 24 Plus. So out of the box, it's already a hybrid inverter. Now we have a version which is called the Gen 24, where if you want to have a battery connected to it, you need to upgrade it, and basically there's like a difference for the upgrade in terms of paying for this feature. And of course, not everyone will want to have a battery, so that's why we have a version where they said it's a bit cheaper on the market. So if you compare, let's say, a snap inverter to a Gen 24, it should be like a couple of $100 difference. And from there, you have a lot of flexibility with the product. So you can go AC couple down the track or DC couple with the inverter. Of course, we all know in terms of product selection, when the customer, let's say, wants to have, let's say, a better efficient, like an efficient storage solution with hot water system, we have our own pilot device. Again, with this Gen 24, it gives you flexibility to go DC couple or AC couple, and you're not paying the full price of the hybrid inverter. And what we are seeing also is, let's say, the uptake of EVs in Australia. So people want to have, let's say, a smart car charger, and that's what we're going to talk today, this Wattpilot device. So when we talk to electric car owners and we get feedback, of course, electric cars are so sophisticated in a way, and there's so many features. For example, if you look at the Tesla cars or even other brands, you can see that it's getting smarter and smarter, and the owner also is asking for a lot of different features. And when we talk to car owners, one of the big topics, even if you're not an electric car owner, one thing which is a big topic is, okay, how can I get the fastest charging, right? But it's not only the fastest charging that the customer is asking, is how can we get an intelligent charging? So what do I mean by that is how, for example, you can use the excess of power from your PV to charge your battery. How can you have like a cost-efficient charging, looking at different options where there's like different tariffs at different times, or for example, if you have like a long trip, how do I charge efficiently? So that's what we will cover with our Wattpilot today. So the other point, of course, we want to give solution. That's basically at Fronius, one of the goals is we want to give options to customer, right? So this intelligent charging, which we will talk today, you can do it with or without a PV system. Also, you can do it with a Gen 24 or a snap inverter. And again, you can do it also with a third-party inverter. So as you can see, it is adaptable and you can retrofit on different sites, but we'll cover that throughout the presentation. So let's have a look at the Wattpilot itself, how it looks like. So you can see this is the new model. So you will see different pictures online. So we'll talk about the different size. So there's the 11 kilowatt, the 22 kilowatt. What's the difference? How do we explain this to customer? We'll talk about how to use the PV surplus charge. How do you set that up? How do you charge with variable electricity tariff? This is something which is only available in Germany and Australia. So we'll put this, I would say, a bit on the side, but still good for you guys to know what we're investigating here in Australia. We'll talk about different intelligent charging modes, some balancing load function that we have, some authentication so that not everyone can use your charger. And also, of course, you have a smart system, a smart solar system. You have a smart charger. You have a smart car. Of course, you need to monitor your car charge also in a smart way, right? So that's where we'll talk also about the commissioning, the operation, and what you can see on the Wattpilot app. Right. So let's start with the basics. Let's look at the different version which is coming to Australia. So we have the Wattpilot Home 11 kilowatt. Then you have the 22 kilowatt, and then you have the Wattpilot Go 22 kilowatt. So one thing which is important to remember, of course, you can see the kilowatt value, but I will explain that a bit more in details later in terms of what it means. The one thing is the 11 kilowatt Wattpilot Home can do only 16 amp max, right? So 6 to 16 amps. The 22 kilowatt can do 6 to 32 amps, and the portable one also can do 6 to 32 amps. And you can see also the mains connection. So you have 5 core cable coming with the Home and the 11, and then you have the 22 kilowatt also Home. Same thing, same type of cable. The one which is different is basically the Wattpilot Go, which I will show you a picture in terms of the cable and what it can do. So just to show you also that all our Wattpilot, right, it's basically, so for example, the Wattpilot 22 kilowatt, the 11 kilowatt, or the Go 22 kilowatt, they all can do single phase and three phase. So there's not like a model which does only three phase, or there's not a model who does only single phase. So they all can do both. So in terms of ordering your stock, it can be basically, you can use the same product on a single phase or on a three phase home. But we will go a bit more in details again. That's just what you can order. And when you look at the different, let's say, options, so you can see that we have the Home and Go. This is kind of the main thing. So the Home is the one which stays fixed on the wall, and then you have the Go, which you can carry on. So what's the concept behind it? Of course, you can have like a wall mount. You can have the Go at your home, right? But let's say you're going to the pub or you're going to a shopping mall. Sometimes you will see that there are those three-phase plug in the wall. So that's where you can plug this Go. So I'm a big fan of the Go version because again, you can bring it everywhere you want. You can also have it at your house. And there are a few different setups you will need to do, which we'll show a bit, but those are the two different variants there, right? So, and also you can see the different look of those two versions. Well, now it comes in terms of the delivery and what comes out of the box. So here you can see all the different components. So you have the mounting bracket, you have the Wattpilot Go or Home. So both of them has a mounting bracket inside. You have a wire fuse or like a fuse also available for you. You have this metal bracket also for the anti-theft device. You also have this RFID reset card, so I will explain also what's the difference. Your ID chip, a quick guide start. Of course, in all our products, we want to make sure you have like a quick guide. This is very important. And finally, you will need to download the Solar.Wattpilot app if you want to do a lot of controls and different settings. Again, which we will cover a bit later on. Other components you can order. So of course you can order more mounting plates. So I'm not sure if you have a holiday house and you have your main house. So you can have one at each location and you have like 4 Go units, you just hook them. You can buy more of those ID chips, right? So we'll talk a bit about this. And we also sell the type 2 cable, right? So 5 meters, 22 amps, so you can do 22 kilowatt. That's the part that we also sell if you want additional accessories, right? Now, one thing which is important is the Wattpilot Go, right? So here you will need to have an adapter, right? And you will need to install a 32 amp one-phase 3-pin socket. And you will need to also, right? So this is the socket that you need to have on your wall, but also you will need to have an adapter lead 32 amp 3-pin or 32 amp 5-pin socket, right? So you can see the conversion here. So why do you need to have this is because if you have a single phase house, you can't have like a 3-phase socket. This is as per AS 3000. You need to make sure that all the phases are connected. So that's why you need to make an adapter like this. We are looking into maybe bringing in our own adapter set. It's not there yet, but if you need to do it like in the next couple of months or the next month, I would say, you will need to have like also another adapter which looks like this. If you are doing some of that, 100% recommend just check with us, making sure that you have everything when you're doing your first few one. Check with us, okay, hey, that's what I need, but this is basically the summary. If, for example, you have a Wattpilot Go again, remember, because they are all 3-phase and the plug at the end is a 3-phase plug. If you go to a single phase house, you can't have in the wall a 3-phase wall socket, right? So that's why you need to have like a single phase wall socket. You do a single phase to like a 3-phase plug, and from there, job is done. All right. So before I go now and talk a bit more about the Wattpilot and some of those unique features, what I thought is let's go to some EV charging basics, because I can tell you, you will get those questions from your customers. And also when you're selling and explaining to the customers what they're getting, it's good to have like a clear explanation, right? So that's where it's important. I would say we go to the basic, how it works, because I'm pretty sure you will have all those questions coming your way. So the first part is the charging standard. There's 2 ways of charging an EV. So you can charge it on the AC side, right? So where the car has an inverter, then it takes AC inside it, and then it converts it into DC to charge the battery. Or you have those superchargers, like for example, the Tesla superchargers, where it's using DC power. So you have those 2 ways of doing the charging. Of course, for example, like some Teslas comes with like a plug that you can have in your wall, which is usually 2 kilowatt plug, right? Just like plug into a wall socket. But this one, as you can see, the type 1, the type 2, it's higher kilowatt range in a way. So here for the Wattpilot, you will need to use a type 2 cable. So again, we can do single phase, 2-phase, or 3-phase. And then you have the different, let's say, kilowatt range. So usually in the private property, you will be able to go up to 22 kilowatt, but that's what we see most of the time here in Australia. So that's, I would say, the one that you will need to use. So just to show you a bit of a different plug. So this is the type 2 plug. So here you can see L1, L2, L3, and then you have your neutral and earth. And then also you can see that there's a 2 plug, which I will talk a bit more. So you have the control pilot and the proximity pilot, which I will explain a bit more. So here you can see the direct current one. So those are the 2 plug, the CCS plug and the charge mode plug shade. So this one I think is not too popular from what I heard, or it's not actually here in Australia. Maybe it's this one, you will see it maybe in Australia. So those are the 2 different ones. Again, you have one using AC and the other one using DC. And for us, we're using the AC charging, which can do from 1 to 43. Let's say the cable can do 1 to 43 kilowatt, right? So the typical charging power that you're using is either 2.3, 11, or 22 kilowatt. Those are the most common one, I would say, out there. And here, also the direct current, you can see those are the different option with the 20 to 350 kilowatts. So usually your superchargers. But let's look closely at those cables, just like some general information. So this type 2 charging cable has been in the EU standard since 2013. So as I mentioned, you have all your 3 phase there. So of course, if you're using a single phase, then you're just using the first one. And then I will explain to you how our Wattpilot uses like all the 3 phase. Just a few basics point, just out of, let's say, when you see a car, you see the plug itself, at least you know a bit. So with the control pilot signal, so what it does, it basically tells what's the electrical status. So for example, do you need to charge, or you need to start, or you need to stop? So this is like a pulse width modulation signal. And also it tells you, okay, what's the maximum charging current that the maximum charging current the car can take, which also I will explain how this part works in the next slide. The next part, of course, you have the proximity pilot. This one determines basically your cable. So this type 2 charging plug, how much current it can take also. So those are the few things which are important, but I will explain again why those parts are important. One thing is you will see that on the app, for example, you won't see there's no, let's say, communication between your electric vehicle and your charging your AC charging cable, your AC car charger, for example. And just to give you an example, that's one thing that they said. People are saying, why I can't see the state of charge of the car, let's say, on the app. So the thing is, in terms of standardized way of looking at this information, this hasn't been written in the standard. There are, let's say, things being worked in the background in terms of trying to have this, but there's no standardized way to get this information. So people will think that, okay, there's something missing in the product. It's not actually, because as I mentioned, it's not written in the standard, but we're working on basically having that included maybe down the track there. So why am I explaining all those different things? It's because that's where, when you talk to your end users, that they understand that there's not only the car chargers which come into play, not only the car, but there's multiple factors, right? And basically there are 4 important factors to achieve, let's say, your maximum amount of charging. The first one is how much your house connection can take. So if you have a 63 amps, that's the max. If you have a 63 amp main supply, that's the maximum amount of current that you can have, right? The second part is, of course, your charging device, or your, for example, in our case, the wall box or the Wattpilot is important. The second part, as I was mentioning, the charging cable. Remember, there is a connection where we are checking, okay, how much power can the cable itself can take from the charger to from your Wattpilot to the charging cable, and then of course what your electric vehicle itself can take. So again, it depends what type of car, like what let's say inverter, or what charger you have inside the inverter. I heard also last week that some cars can only take 2 phase, for example, but this is only in Europe. So there are some few exemptions. So that's an important thing to explain to the customer. Okay, even if you have, let's say, 22 kilowatt charger, doesn't mean that you will be able to get all the 20 kilowatt out of it because of all those factors. Maybe the car, for example, can't take this amount of power. And that's the part where there will be, I would say, big education part on the customer side, where we need to explain, okay, what's all those, basically the difference and what is available for them. And of course, whatever is the weakest link will be the decisive factor out there. So for example, if your main supply can't provide this amount of power, then yes, of course, you can't charge your car. Or if you're not, your cable, your type 2 cable is shorter, or let's say can't take this amount of current, then of course, this will be the weakest link in the loop there. So now let's have a look at the charging options, right, with the Fronius Wattpilot, and maybe let's start with the simple one. So out of the box, we have a preset current, which is basically 16 amps. So as soon as you put it on the wall and you want to start to charge, you don't want to look at any feature, put the plug one side to the Wattpilot and the other side into your car, and then you can just charge the car straight away. So pretty straightforward. You have also some toggle or like a button where you can change the setting of the current. So here you can see that there are some LEDs, right, around the Wattpilot, which actually you can change the color, right? And depending on what, let's say, level you have, so if you want to have 10 amps, 16 amps, or different amperage, so you can change this also on the Wattpilot itself. So you don't need to go to the app to change the settings. You can go on the actual hardware and just press on the button to change the current. And you will see that the amount of LEDs will increase with the more current that you want to have to go through there. But out of the box is set as 16 amps. Again, remember, this is the current that the actual Wattpilot can provide. Then you need to check, hey, okay, what cable and what the car can take itself. Also, we have a scheduler. So for example, you can say from this time to this time, I want to allow the car to charge from the grid. Or you can say from this time to this time, let's say it's like peak time. So let's say you're just back from work. You don't want the car to charge at this time. You want to do it maybe later, or let's say at a lower tariff. You can do this setup. And on the weekdays, as you can see in this picture, you can set 2 timers. So you can say 2 allow or 2 block as an example. And of course, you have Saturday and Sunday option. Then after that, you have another option where we also wanted to have to give the possibility to the customer to charge on an affordable rate, or let's say environmental friendly charging. So the one thing is, if this affordable solution or affordable way of charging is not available here in Australia, but we are investigating it if it is something that, let's say, people will want. But it is possible to use this in Germany and Austria. You will see also some marketing if you go to France International. So what we do is in Austria and Germany, we look at the different tariffs, for example, and then we charge the car at a lower tariff. But as I mentioned, this part we can't do it here in Australia. But what we can do is, of course, with PV surplus, we can charge the car. So this is, if you ever use this particular function, it will basically be this one. It will go to the PV surplus, and from there we can charge your car in different steps. So here you can see 1.3 to 22 kilowatt steps that we can do, and it's 1 amp steps. So you can see as an example, let's say this is your PV production, and in the afternoon you want to charge your car because let's say you don't have a lot of loads. You can see different steps. So it's more granular with the single phase compared to the 3 phase. And also we have an automatic switchover from single phase to 3 phase. So how does this work? So this is where we have this eco mode and next ride mode, which I will explain what's the difference between those two. So from there, you can, for example, start to charge with your single phase, right, which let's say 6 amps. So that's where it's going to start, 1.38 kilowatt. Then it increase. And then as soon as, let's say, if ever you have a 3-phase connection, it will automatically switch basically before this. So it does 16 amps. It will go back to, let's say, 3-phase 4.14, and then it will go again, increase. The one thing that you will need to be careful is in terms of, let's say, the different option that you have. So let's say you have a single phase property, and let's say you have 16 amps maximum, or let's say you have the Go version, right? Sorry, the 11 kilowatt a home version. You can see at the start we said that the 11 kilowatt can do maximum 16 amps. So technically on a single phase, if you have like single phase property, you have an 11 kilowatt Wattpilot, which is fixed on the wall. It can only do 16 amps. So you will only be able to do a 3.6. If you have a 3-phase connection, then of course you can go to 11 kilowatts. So I will just repeat this again. If you look at the start, there was 3 different versions, right? There is the fixed version, the Wattpilot 11 kilowatt, the Wattpilot 22 kilowatt, and then you have the Wattpilot Go 22 kilowatt. So if you have the Wattpilot 11 kilowatt, right, which is basically this, let's say this one, right, it can do maximum 16 amps, which means that on a single phase, you will only get 3.68, right? Let me know if you have any other question. I can go back to the slide again. But again, we have this automatic switching so that you have more granularity also there. And it's 1 amp increase. So you can do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So here we just put even numbers to make it easier for people to see. Then, of course, I mentioned charging modes. So we have different charging modes available with the Wattpilot. So the one that I was talking about was the eco mode. So this is where it uses the PV surplus and the charging with variable energy tariff, which is this part, right, is not available here in Australia. You can only do by PV surplus, right? So if ever you enable these settings, it will say, okay, I will just charge with PV surplus, right? So this is one of the mode which is available, but there's also another one which is called the next trip mode. So with this next trip mode, you will define, let's say, distance converted, let's say, from kilowatt hour into your EV. And then it will use primarily the PV surplus. And of course, we can't use a variable energy tariff, but then it will try to charge, let's say, the car to whatever you need for the next trip that you have. So let's say tomorrow you need to do, let's say 100 Ks, right? You can put that in the settings of, which I will show you in the next slide, so that you ensure that your car is charged at this particular time tomorrow. And it will try to do it by PV surplus. And the other thing is you can also include, remember, you have a settings before saying you don't want to charge it between this time and this time, right? So in a way, you will charge, let's say, the car the most cost efficient way, and also with PV surplus when you combine that with, let's say, the desired time that you want to have the car charge, right? So what do I mean here? So you can see the setting in the app. So here you put the minimum amount of charging that you want to have. Usually you will put like kilowatt hour. You put the time where you want this to be done, and then you say, okay, I want to have the, let's say, eco mode after the next trip mode, and it will tell you what's the consumption per 100 kilometers for your car also. So as you enter all this time, all those information, then by 6, let's say, a.m. in the morning tomorrow, your car will be charged. And again, as the most, we will try to use excess of PV first, and then we'll move to, let's say, charging from the grid if required, right? And again, charging from the grid, you can say at what time you want it to be charged, because we don't have the other feature there. All right, so those are all the different modes available on the Wattpilot. My recommendation is to get one just to play around a bit with it. That's, I think, the best way to learn. That's how I did in our office. There's so many different, let's say, options, and for your team also who wants to learn about those different, let's say, function, we are working on some quick videos to explain how it actually works. But as you can see, now the solar system is getting a bit more complex, and there's a lot of solution available for the customer, right? A lot of possibilities which enable them to look into, which then also goes to the next part with the sector coupling, right? And if you look at the overall solar solution, of course, people are looking at the EV and they're saying, okay, I need to make sure my solar system can talk to the EV. And if you look at DC coupled solution, and let's say you look also at the Fronius ecosystem, we all had this picture, let's say from the beginning, where you have all those devices. How does it talk to each other? So you know that our Gen 24 can become a Gen 24 Plus by doing the upgrade. You connect the battery. Some people want to have an on-pilot, which is a power diverter for resistive load, or some people are doing energy management. So for example, turn on my pool pump if I have excess of power. And now they're bringing another device, which is a Wattpilot, which is a car charger. So having all those interfaces to talk to each other can be a bit sometimes not overwhelming, but a bit to think about. And what we wanted to make sure is that the process is as simple as possible for the customer, because you need to think about this. If ever, right, you have an AC coupled solution, then it gets a bit more tricky, because how do you make priority of charging the battery over charging your Wattpilot? So that's where, if you have ever a configuration like this, we should maybe talk about it. But if you have like a DC coupled solution, that's where life is a bit easier. So what do I mean by that? For example, you can say, let me prioritize my battery first and make sure it is at 70%. Then I want to make sure when I'm back home, I have hot water. So I want to make sure that it is at 40 degrees after my battery reaching 70%. And then you can say, look, 70% should be good with my battery. Charge my car after that, right? If I have enough energy, then maybe put power back to my battery, my fixed battery, right? My BYD battery. So how does this work in the background, right? So our Wattpilot will talk to our inverter via the network, via Wi-Fi. So this Wattpilot, you can't hardwire with the Fronius smart meter. You can't hardwire to the internet. You just need to connect this Wattpilot to the same internet that this Gen 24 is connected, and then they will talk to each other. Then from there, you will go to the inverter homepage, the Gen 24, and you can select priorities. Okay, so that's what you do on the inverter homepage. Then you go to the app, to the Wattpilot app, right? You can say, okay, when my battery hits 70% and my on-pilot is 40 degrees, then charge with surplus. Or you can decrease this to 20%. You can say, hey, my car is more important today. Let's charge my car. And everything can be done remotely using this Wattpilot app, right? Which I will show you a bit of the function there, right? So you can see that life is easier when you have everything in one solution and the DC coupled solution. If you had an AC coupled solution, that's where, depending again, if you have a Fronius inverter or not, you can measure excess of power, but then it depends who reacts the fastest, right? So if ever you have a AC coupled solution, it can be a bit more tricky, but if you look at the overall solution with the DC couple and the Gen 24, your processes will be a bit more straightforward. The other point is we all know that there's a bit of more zero export limitation or export limitation in the country. So one thing is we wanted to make sure that our Wattpilot can deal with some of the system, because remember, if you can't push power to the grid, then we don't really know how much excess of power you have to charge to the Wattpilot. But all the smart are inside the Fronius Wattpilot and the Fronius inverter to talk to each other to know, okay, hey, now I have enough excess of power. So how about we charge the car? Of course, you need to do the export limitation on the inverter, but also on the Wattpilot. You need to tell it that, hey, look, we have we have excess of power and charge the car. So you can do zero export or any other export limitation with your car. All right. All right. So this is in terms of charging, in terms of export limitation. Those are the options available for you guys. So now let's maybe touch point a bit on some let's say few new features also which are coming. So one is the dynamic load balancing. So what is the dynamic load balancing? You remember I was telling you at the start that it also depends on how much your supply coming into your household, right? So let's say what's your main switch of the property is rated at. So maybe they can't take as much as much current, right? So for example, let's say in summer, you decide to say, okay, I have 2 EVs, then I want to turn my oven on. So suddenly your house is trying to draw a lot of energy for whichever reason, or you have everything on in your house. So with the dynamic load balancing, the Wattpilot can actually know, okay, this is how much your point of connection is. This is how much is available. So I will make sure that I don't try to take too much power from the grid. And also, if you have 2 Wattpilots, we can balance also the amount of current going through those 2 cars. So those are few new features which is coming in. We all know that there's a lot of system out there. So remember that the Wattpilot is also compatible with the Snap Inverter, or of course the Gen 24. So we want to make sure that it is possible to do both, and we want to make sure that we don't trip, let's say, your mains also. So that's like a feature which is coming Q4 this year, and of course a smart meter is required in this case. The next part, which is pretty interesting, which I'm pretty interested to get again more information about, is this RFID authentication. So you have this small chip or this small token, I would say, where you can say, okay, hey, if I have this particular card, let's say it's in a public area, I can charge the car, and also you can monitor and analyze each chip how much energy they're using with a CSV file. I think that's quite attractive as an offer. So you can have up to 10 RFID cards to one Wattpilot. There's also this personalized billing, which we will provide a bit more information. So that's, I think, the interesting part, how you can, let's say, have an overall solution. So we had, like, for example, someone who said, hey, I have an Airbnb. How can I let my customers, I would call it customers, use just a car charger, for example, only them to use it and not everyone around the area, because I'm just using the house as an Airbnb. So this is kind of, I would say, cool feature. So you can also lock everything in place. Of course, communication, I mentioned that a bit before. So in terms of communication, you can't hardwire it like a LAN, so everything is Wi-Fi. You don't have any ICE485 or anything like this. Everything goes to the network, and from there the Wattpilot connects to the modem, to the customer's modem, and then it will read the inverter and the Fronius meter data via a local Solar API, right? And there will be more information also coming in quarter 4 this year. And also we have, when it comes to monitoring, we have like a Solar.Wattpilot app, right? So it's an app just for the car chargers. So of course you can have everything on one app, but then it's a bit too crammed in a way when you have too many functions. I look at the Solar.Wattpilot myself. I'm like, wow, there's like a lot of settings, a lot of things you can do. And imagine if you have everything in the one portal, it can be a bit sometimes too overwhelming. So with the Solar.Wattpilot app, ask maybe your installers to download it on their phone. So again, you connect with the Wattpilot, and then from there, you can do that via the charging box with the access point. You will have like a small card that you can scan. You have numerous settings, so you can say, okay, hey, charge as you see the current, different current values to your car. You have different charging modes, so we went through those parts together. different visualizations. So you also have like one part where you can see everything and the charging and all the information there. So it's a very, let's say, simple overview of the let's say all the data, and of course you can change the charging modes on the app. The thing is, we also wanted to integrate this with the Solar Web platform, so the customer can choose, like maybe they can just see everything on the Solar.Wattpilot, but we all know some of them are very techy. I would say some of the people who has electric vehicles sometimes are pretty techy. They want to see everything, and that's where you can go to the Solar Web portal also, where here on the overview page, so usually you will have 4 bubbles if you have also a battery, right? And if you click on the load bubble, you will be able to see all those particular part there. So here, sorry if it is in German there. So here you can see the Wattpilot in the garage, and this is basically your load in the house, and this is the total of loads. So you can also see like what is your consumption to each, let's say to your Wattpilot and to your home load. From there, you will also be able to see information in the histories chart, and you have also reports. So just to show you how it looks like, here, if you have, of course, premium, you will see all of this. Sorry. If you have premium, you will be able to see all of this up to 3 days. So here you can see charge of your battery, and also you can see your own pilot, but also your Wattpilot in purple. And of course, if you have Solar Web free of charge, you will be able to see every single one here, right? So remember, this is for non-premium account. You can see 3 days of interval data, and then for non-premium, you will, for premium, you can see basically all the date. For non-premium, it's only 3 days back. And then for all the users, you get all this data. Premium or non-premium, you get all the information there with the day and month. And when you go to analysis history, you can see the again detailed information of the voltage, current. So you can see there's a lot of information there. You can also see the Wi-Fi signal strength. There's like few things that you, of course, we are working on. You can see the device performance. Again, it's a lot of information. 100% will recommend to have it. Then finally, maybe to finish up on those points, what additional features we are bringing. So there's this open charge point protocol that we're working on. So this is a remote API for third-party device, which I think will be also very important. Let's say if you have like, let's say, large fleet of those. You have the residual current device with direct current detection. So this is an integrated like RCD kind of inside the Go version. So you don't need any upstream RCD type B. Also, you will have the phase and voltage testing, so that you can measure the input voltage so that you don't damage, let's say, the electric car if, let's say, phase is missing. There's this anti-theft device, so you have the cable lock function. You actually have this part, you have it when it's basically plugged into the car, so you can't really pull it in both ways. So there will be also additional protection for the charging box, which is coming. We'll also measure the temperature if, let's say, the temperature is too high and the current needs to be reduced. So there's like more features and more information about that coming soon. So definitely, I would say stay if you like our social media pages, and also if you're under our newsletter, that's where you will get all the information. So where can you purchase a Wattpilot? What I would recommend is contact one of our authorized sales partners. We have all the information. There's a link there, so we'll send you one of basically this presentation of the webinar. And from there, you can try your first Wattpilot, and please tag Fronius Australia and Fronius International if you want on our, just tag them at Fronius Australia, or you can do also Fronius Fridays. That's something else that we do. 100% will also promote on our social media channel, sorry. But that's pretty much it on my side for the Fronius Wattpilot. Do we have any questions? Okay, so there is quite a few questions. Let me open that quickly. Okay, there's a good question. Does the Wattpilot require a Gen 24 inverter, or is a Fronius SIMO also supported? So it's compatible with basically all the Snap and all the Gen 24. You can do it without a Fronius inverter. If you want to do by power surplus, you will need to install a data manager card, data manager box, and a Fronius smart meter. Also, if you want to do by power surplus. But again, you can have just the Gen 24, the Wattpilot by itself if you want. What's the advantage of the home over the Go? Well, from my perspective, I see that the Go has more advantage because you can carry it. But if we're comparing 22 kilowatt versus 22 kilowatt, if it is not, then the difference is the Go can do 22 and the other one can do 11, right? The smaller range. But I think I covered this one at the start. All right, good feedback about the single phase to three phase adapter. So they all come, just to make sure that this part is clear. The Gen 24, the Wattpilot is basically doing both single phase and three phase, and inside the Wattpilot it will change from single phase to three phase if you have a three phase connection. All right, some feedback for us that we should call the car like an AC charger. Yes, it is an AC charger. There's a good question here. Good question. Once a car is fully charged, will the Wattpilot know this and stop supplying energy? Yes. So that's why we have the communication in between. It will just say, okay, let's stop whenever you want to have it. Oh, I like this idea. For the Airbnb example, is there a way to know how much energy a particular client used for their stay so we can charge them at the end? Yes, you will be able to see all of this. You can create like a report. So it's pretty good. I like the idea. Can it charge the EV from the home battery? Yes, you can do this. So for example, it will just act as a load. So let's say it's at night, your battery is full, you just drove back your car, you say, okay, charge my car. You will take power from your battery. So when will the Wattpilot be available? So it should be the next couple of weeks. You should be able to put an order in for the next few months. Good question. Does it have a back entry? Unfortunately not, because you can see that there's like the wall bracket. Unfortunately, you can't do like a rear entry on it. You need to come at the top, I'm pretty sure. So there's another question. So to clarify, a house with single phase power who wants to charge at 7 kilowatt per hour will require a 22 kilowatt model. Well, if you want 7 kilowatt, you will need a 22 kilowatt model on the single phase. The thing is, you need to make sure, just to go back quickly to this page, you need to look at which one is the weakest link. So this picture here. So as I mentioned, you can have, let's say, a 22 kilowatt wall box, but if your supply can't provide this, then you can't really have it. Yeah. And then just to show you this particular table here, which shows you the 6 amps, 8 amps, 10 amps. So if you have a, let's say 22 kilowatt, let's say charger, of course, you will be able to do, so you will be able to do this one, right? The 32 amps. You just need to make sure that everything within the line that I just showed you, but you can do 32 amps, right? And then you can do 7 kilowatt. Why would you order an 11 over a 22? Well, that's a good question. I would say that most people will use a 22, but if, for example, throughout the link, you don't have let's say throughout this link, show you that guys quickly. So why would someone order the 11 over the 22? Well, if you know that your supply can't provide more than this, then yeah, that's where you say, okay, let's go to the 11 in a way. But I see that everyone will order more the 22. That's my opinion. But yeah. Can the Wattpilot incorporate with other brand of batteries? So I guess this question in terms of charging from other batteries, yes, you can. If you don't have a Fronius inverter, then we'll need to you'll need to manually, let's say, put the information inside. Like it's, for example, let's say you have a third-party inverter, and then you have another battery connected to it. Then you'll need to say, okay, charge my battery. You can't say, you can't, let's say if you don't have a Fronius smart meter and a data manager box, you can't say, hey, charge by PV surplus. Well, and then I would say that's what I was saying. If you have like an AC couple solution, like an AC couple battery, maybe get in touch with us and we can have a look. Does Fronius make type 2 connector? Yes, we have the cable, the type, I mean, I think you're mentioning the type 2 charging cable. We have it. Yeah, you can buy it from us, or you can buy it also from other electrical wholesaler. Up to you guys. Thanks for the feedback, Simon. I really like what you mentioned. So Simon is saying that there's basically, it would be a bit of stress for some people to understand all those points, right? And I 100% agree, because the first time I heard about all those different things, I'm like, oh, I thought it was just simple, like your phone, just plug it into the wall, but it's a bit more into it, explaining that to the customer. But I guess also one feedback that I have on my side is that maybe we should create like an easy explanation to the end users. That's something that, for example, we were discussing with Fronius International, that we can create something which is easier to understand. Can they run from a two-phase supply? Yes, it can run on a two-phase supply. Can the charger be set up without any comms? Make it essentially a dumb charger? Yes, you can have it just on the wall and then use the button, for example, but you still, I would say, put it online. That's what I would say, because remember the one that you're carrying on with you, right? You're kind of using it like a dumb charger on some site. You just plug it in and then plug it into your car there. Good question from Jackson. Can you install a three-phase outlet on a single-phase property and just connect one phase rather than using the adapter? It's kind of against AS 3000, if I'm not wrong, to have like a three-phase plug, and you don't wire all the three-phase. So that's why we need this adapter in a way. I had the same idea, but then yeah, this standard kicked in, so that's why it makes it a bit tricky. When can we expect to see the temperature on the Wattpilot? I think it's gonna come Q4, but I need to check this. All right, I think there's a few questions maybe that I missed. So what we'll do, guys, if there's any, I'll always recommend this. If anything that we missed, please email our PV solution queue. That's where our sales engineer will get back to you guys. I'm sending that to all of you. But again, thanks for coming to our webinar today, guys. It was great. A lot of familiar name in the attendees group. One thing, I hope to see a lot of you guys at All Energy this year. We have our booth as usual, so please come and say hi. The whole team from Fronius will be there, and I hope I'm gonna see you guys soon. But thanks again for coming to the webinar. We'll send a recording. If you have questions, send it to the PV solution queue, and also get in touch with your sales engineer if you have any questions. Thanks again, everyone, and see you soon.